Howard?
I won't be spied upon, Mrs. Gillis. I won't put up with that.
Well, see here, lad, I think we must have gotten off on the wrong foot. I'm not spying on you.
Then why do you keep popping in like this?
Why,
Would you like me to go faster? Would you like me to spill out my life's blood for you here on the floor? Is that what you're after?
Howard, are you well? Are you well enough to work?
Of course I'm well. If only you'd quit bothering and pestering and questioning me. Is that too much to ask?
Well, look, Howard, I'm interested in young men. I have 2 boys of my own. They're in the service. You see that Bill on the desk there? He's a Marine. And on the table there, that's Dennis. He's in the infantry. He's overseas.
So that's why you hate me. I see it all now.
Hate you? Why? Well, whatever gave you that?
Yes, you hate me. I could tell it the moment I walked into this house this morning.
But Howard,
you hate me because I'm young and I'm not in the service like your boys.
Why?
On January 18th, 1945, Sinatra co-starred with Agnes Moorehead on an episode of radio's outstanding theater of thrills, Suspense. He plays an unhinged young man, hired by Agnes Moorehead to do chores around the house and provide some company.
Son, you're ill. Let's put the work away now, and I'll make you a cup of tea.
Sinatra first registered for the U.S. draft in December of 1940. As a new father, he had been granted an exemption from service.
I only want you to do whatever will...
But in the fall of 1943, the government abolished many deferments for married fathers. Meanwhile, Sinatra was already catching flack from resentful soldiers.
I'll tell you why I'm not in the Army, if you insist.
I don't insist at all, Howard.
If you must know, I'll tell you. They said there was something wrong with my mind.
It was assumed he was avoiding the draft because he was a star. And while ordinary men were away at war, Sinatra was at home, living it up, and sleeping with their wives and girlfriends. The assumption was only partially incorrect.
The first thing that I thought of when I reached the hallway was the phone.
In December of 1943, Army Doctor Captain Joseph Weintraub examined Sinatra in Newark and declared him medically unfit to serve, or 4F.
All right, as long as you're way ahead of me, when did Yankee Doodle first come out?
Well, Ma, the first known appearance of Yankee Doodle...
He was disqualified because of the chronic puncture in his left eardrum. He was also only 119 pounds, 4 pounds below the Army minimum, for a man with a height of 5 feet, 7.5 inches. Unfortunately, rumors persisted amongst enlisted men. Many of those rumors were fueled by right-leaning William Randolph Hearst-owned newspapers, who opposed Sinatra's very public Democrat leanings.
And that was the year that Axel Stordahl wrote special lyrics for the tune of Yankee Doodle.
He didn't make a GI tour until May of 1945, when he went out on the road to camps for 6 weeks with comedian and friend Phil Silvers. He was worried about his reception, but for the most part, Sinatra came through unscathed, with his popularity cresting.
I think it was a time period that was important for them to have somebody to root for. You know, it was during the war years. I always felt that I was, in their minds, one of the kids from the neighborhood who grew up and became a success. Yeah.
I think there was a lot of sex involved there, Frank. I truly do. I think it's sex.
Well, you're a lady. You see the side that I don't.
I'm entitled.
Yeah,
but,
you're right.
But I really do. I think, how did you feel when that first Bobby Soxer bit the dust, or the first 10,000?
I was very confused. I had never seen it. Nobody had ever heard that before, that kind of reaction. I was also confused because it was very difficult working in the theater in those days. Because if I did this during a song, they would squeal and scream, but it was a natural thing to do.
Yeah.
And I was afraid to move after a while. I just wouldn't do anything. And then if I, what they called, bent a note, if I just kind of looped the note.
Oh, I know that. Well, that turns everybody on.
Well, they would wail, you know.
Yes.
And then finally, it got so that I couldn't even hear myself finish a whole song.
You don't understand, Oogie. You see, he represents everything that a girl wants out of romance. Her ideals of what perfect love is like. The way she feels about him is the way she wants to feel about, well, the man she'll be in love with someday. Only she knows that nothing will ever be as good as how Frankie makes her feel love could be as good as. Is that clear, Oogie?
No, but go ahead.
Well, he is a girl's dream of the utter acme of ideal love. And when he stands before you there on the screen, you see something absolutely beautiful?
Thin Bing Crosby.
All right, then. If you just want to ignore real artistic exquisiteness.
Well, what do you want to do, marry the guy?
Oh, of course not, Oogie. I know he's, well, unattainable and remote and...
And Frank Sinatra is right at this very moment standing by an NBC microphone in New York City. But before I introduce Frank Sinatra in person, may I say that we're about to present him with a very, very fine silver plaque. A silver plaque that bears the following inscription: to Frank Sinatra, not because he's a great artist, but rather because through his unselfish devotion to the cause of tolerance in America, he has upheld the highest ideals of good sportsmanship. And now, in order that you may hear Frank Sinatra's speech of acceptance, as he accepts this silver plaque at the New York Paramount Theater, this is Bill Stern switching you across the country from where I'm standing in Indianapolis. The next voice you hear will be Frank Sinatra speaking in person from New York City.
Thank you, Bill. I shall always treasure this plaque and what it stands for. I'm not going to make any speeches about this country or about tolerance, but I'd like to tell you one little story that illustrates exactly how I feel. Many years ago in Germany, there lived a family who resented being told just how they must believe in God. And this family finally wanted to worship God as they saw fit. And when that became impossible in Germany, why, they packed up their belongings and sailed for America. Perhaps you're thinking this all happened recently, but it didn't. It happened a long, long time ago. And yet, you know, I think we should be very grateful that this family did come to America, because their name was Eisenhower. And from this family came General Eisenhower. So thank you, Bill, very much for this plaque. However, there are two words in this plaque that please me immensely. They are the words tolerance and sportsmanship, because to me they mean the same thing. Thanks again, Bill, and this is Frank Sinatra of the Paramount Theater in New York City, returning you to Bill Stern in Indianapolis.
Thank you very, very much, Frank Sinatra.
If you are but a dream,
just give me 5 minutes and I'll have the other number ready.
I'll get a smoke.
Next number, boys.
Somebody in for a licking?
You bet. We're gonna smear him.
Yeah, but 10 against 1. That's not very fair.
Ah, come on.
What's it all about?
None of your business.
Scared to tell me?
No, I'm not as scared. I'll fight you even.
In 1945, MGM loaned Frank Sinatra out to RKO for a short film written by Albert Maltz called The House I Live In. Sinatra played himself, taking a break from a recording session to step outside to smoke a cigarette. He sees several boys attempting to jump a Jewish boy and intervenes.
Now, hold on. I see what you mean. You must be a bunch of those Nazi werewolves I've been reading about.
Mister, are you screwy?
Not me. I'm an American.
Well, what do you think we are?
Nazis?
Don't call me a Nazi. My father's a sergeant in the army. He been wounded even.
Wounded, huh? Say, I bet he got some of that blood plasma.
He was wounded so bad he had to get it 3 times.
Son, anybody in your family ever go to the blood bank?
Sure, my mother and my father both.
Uh-huh. You know what? I bet you maybe his pop's blood helped save your dad's life.
Sinatra simultaneously made an effort to visit schools and talk to teenagers about bigotry, always citing the hurtful words thrown at him as a boy. The House I Live In impressed the critics. A reviewer for Q pointed out that not only did Sinatra take his fame seriously, he attempted to do something constructive with it. The short won an honorary Academy Award that year.
Religion makes no difference, except maybe to a Nazi or somebody as stupid. Why, people all over the world worship God in many different ways. God created everybody. He didn't create one people better than another.
There's an era about your father that people should know more about, and that's race relations. He was a pioneer in civil rights.
Yes, indeed.
The House I Live In.
Yeah, which, by the way, was another reason why he got into trouble. Because
he made a short subject.
His lectures and the short subject, The House I Live In, appearances at rallies for tolerance, made people list him as communist.
Taking Lena Horne to dinner at the Stork Club.
Unheard of. Forget about it.
Also in 1945, MGM cast Sinatra opposite of Gene Kelly and Katherine Grayson in the Technicolor musical Anchors Aweigh. It garnered several Academy Award wins and nominations, and the song, I Fall in Love Too Easily, sung by Sinatra in the film, was nominated for an Academy Award. But the 1940s would be a tale of 2 decades for Sinatra. During the war years, he peaked as the most popular recording artist in the country. At the end of the decade, his career would be considered over, even by many of those who he was once closest to.